I live by this concept that everybody should manage their career like a business. You are a service provider. Your skill sets create the income, and your employer is just a client. And the thought process has always been, how many businesses do you know that thrive with one client?
Right.
None. So like when people get laid off and they lose their job, like, what am I gonna do? So my question always be like, why did you have one job? Like, you need to own your skill set and manage it that way. And as I'm traveling around the world at American Airlines, I'm flying people in, I am building my network. I'm an internal consultant. I never saw myself as an employee. As a matter of fact, I had other consulting gigs where I was doing PCI assessments for different companies while I was the architect in American Airlines. I had both of those things working.
Welcome back to another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees, and today we have a very special guest. You might have seen him around before on social media or on LinkedIn, and this is Boyd Clewis. He is the CEO of Baxter Clewis Cybersecurity, and I've been waiting for this episode because I feel like people know who you are, but they really don't know all of the things that you do, and you do a lot of amazing things. So welcome on to the series.
Hey, Simone, thank you for having me. You know, I dabble in a few things. I'm excited to talk about it today.
No. We're gonna get all the way into it. So first, I want to talk more about like your background, right? Like, where are you from, and how did you get into tech?
Man, that is a very interesting question. As far as my background, I am actually from Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
Fort Worth, Texas, funky town for the people that know about it. I grew up there and I lived there for 20 years before I went to college. I went to the University of North Texas to major in accounting, and I was a quote unquote track star. I used to high jump. For people that didn't know, your man used to jump 6'11", had those bunnies, and windmill on people in the gym too. I did that. But you know, life got tough and I actually failed out of college my second year. My daughter had passed away and I mentally just couldn't recover from it. And what I ended up doing was sitting on my mom's couch for like 3 or 4 months before I decided to get a job. And that job was not a tech one. It was a $13 per hour accounts receivable position at this big copier company called Ricoh. And after getting laid off at Ricoh, I decided I wanted to make this shift into tech. And that's how I ended up getting my first tech job as a junior network technician.
So what made you want to shift into tech from accounting?
Well, the thing that really made me want to shift, God rest his soul, it was Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs to me was like the ultimate innovator. And around that time, it was like 2009, it's when the iPad came out. And that's just what did it for me. So the iPad came out, I became interested in tech. And then the company that I was working at, Ricoh in Dallas, they had the most bonehead tech support thing ever, right? So check this out, y'all. Ricoh, where I'm working, is in Dallas. Headquarters is in New Jersey. Anytime a computer would break, they would literally pack it up and ship it to New Jersey for it to get fixed, while the person sits there idly waiting for the computer to come back.
Okay.
And I had to do their work. So I was like, no, absolutely not. So I went on the Googles. Wasn't much YouTube going on at that time, but I went on the Googles to figure out how to fix the computers. And I was like, wow, I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
So I became the resident tech support guy.
Okay, so before they even like gave you the job or you applied to it, you just kind of like just stepped into the role. Like, hey, I see opportunity here. I can help fix these computers.
100. As a matter of fact, a story of my life, you'll find out later. That's how every promotion has ever come from me. I stepped into the position before it was given to me.
Right.
And then people will make room for you as you grow when you show your abilities. Most people will just ask and say, give me, because I deserve this. But your skills and ability will show more than your mouth could ever do.
Right. So you ended up getting this first really kind of like help desk technician job that you created for yourself.
Yes.
And then how did you go from that into getting your next tech role?
First of all, when I went from $13 per hour to this junior network technician, they hired me at $36,000 a year. That was banking to me.
Yeah.
I went and got my dream car at the time was a Mustang, and I was so excited about it. I got custom license plates, and their joint said TCP/IP.
Oh man, okay. So you got that job and you put TCP/IP on the plates.
Yes.
So you were excited.
Oh, that's
You were like, I made it.
Like for real.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, I have made it. I have made it. Because like most people will probably gloss over what happened. Failed out of college, got a tech job. Yes, guys, no college degree. Failed out of college, got a tech job. But it was crazy to be able to move to that position. Yes, it was entry level, but I learned so much in a short amount of time. I ended up working for a managed service provider. They're also referred to as MSPs. They provided IT outsourcing to like 30, 40 different companies here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I was exposed to a lot of different industries in a really short time.
Yeah. So you really got your foot in the door through like the way that I recommend a lot of people, which is like getting into help desk, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people nowadays don't want to do help desk whatsoever. But I feel like if you have no experience, no tech knowledge, that could be a great place for you to stay at for like 6 months and at least start learning, getting that experience, and then move on from there.
Yeah. I developed this mantra, manage your career like a business. And people try to go straight into like the high levels of entrepreneurship, tech, cybersecurity, but they forget that starting place of R&D, research and development. And that is the help desk. That is the help desk. And like I was guilty of that. When I first started Boyd Clewis Cybersecurity Training Academy, like my first campaign was attacking the help desk. Skip the help desk, get off the help desk. But after years of reflection, I was like, yo, like that made me.
Yeah.
That made me.
Yeah, that's where I started at.
Yeah.
Right, I started in help desk, right? So I feel like it's definitely valuable experience, and you know, it's the easiest way to get in. There's always a need for help desk providers, right? Like there's always going to be a need. No matter if AI is around, somebody got to fix those computers.
This is very true.
Somebody has to fix them. So, okay, so you got your foot in the door, and then how'd your career progress from there? So you got that job making $36,000 a year. How'd you progress from there?
Yeah, so the cool thing about the company that I worked at, they hired me at $36,000 a year, and they were like, this is just like the probation phase, right? 90 days later, they upgraded me to $40,000. I'm like, man, like we real good. Moved out that little tiny apartment, rented a bigger house.
Yeah.
Like $40,000 coming from where I came from in East Fort Worth. Yo, I was on it. But I had greater ambitions than making $40,000 a year. So after working that position for a little over a year, I switched to another managed service provider, and they paid me $50,000 a year. And this time they gave me a company car, because working for a company that services other companies meant a lot of driving to different locations. And it wasn't something I considered. So I put a lot of miles on that Mustang.
Yeah.
A lot of miles on that Mustang.
Yeah.
So it was really cool getting an opportunity to continue to learn and develop, but also get a company car to be able to get around with. And I worked that position for about 2 years. But every time I moved, there was intention for me to learn something new in that position that I was in.
Okay. So from there, I guess, how did you start getting into those cybersecurity roles? Did you go back to school? Did you just continue to put yourself out there? Like, how did you get interested in cybersecurity, Mr. TCP/IP?
So I got interested in cybersecurity. This was, 2012-ish, somewhere around there. It happened by accident. After working for the managed service provider, I went and worked for a software company in Dallas. They're actually one of the biggest software companies in the nation now. They grew significantly. I was working there overnight. I was working in the NOC, the Network Operating Center, and they were paying me $60,000 a year plus a shift differential of 10%. So I was making like $69,000 or something. No, $66,000. Yeah, it was cool, but I was like, hey, there's something that's missing. Like, I keep progressing in my career, and I started getting these certifications, but the income wasn't coming with the certification. So I knew something needed to change. So I started focusing my interest on cybersecurity. Even though I was making what I thought was decent money, still had a wife and kids, so there wasn't a lot of money to invest in education. So I taught myself a lot of things, and I ended up teaching myself basically the foundations of what cybersecurity is. And I took it a step further. I performed a risk assessment on the company that I was working at, and I presented it to leadership and said, hey, here's some problems that I observed. Here's some potential solutions. And I let my management know that I was interested in cybersecurity. And at that point in time, like, nothing really came from it. They were very receptive and they started implementing the fixes. But it all changed with a phone call. I get a phone call from my manager in the daytime. He's like, Boyd, I need you to come to the office. I'm like, bro, I work nights. Like, why are you trying to get me to come to the office? Did they notice I kind of left early the other night? Like, oh, goodness.
Yeah.
So I come in there. He's like, hey, Boyd, thanks for coming. We are about to fail this PCI assessment. I'm like, first of all, dude, like, I don't even know what PCI is. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
He's like, this assessment that we got to go through every year because we process credit card payments. We're about to fail this assessment. And if we fail, we're all going to get fired. And this company could potentially get fined. I was like, okay, why are you telling me this? And why are you about to fail? He said, go look over there and you tell me. I go and look in the conference room. My coworker that's supposed to be managing the assessment with the third-party auditors is sitting in the chair in front of the auditors, head down, snoring. Drool running down the side of his face.
Oh, he was knocked out.
He was out of there.
That's not like I just dozed off. He's like he was asleep for a while.
Yeah, like, you're thinking back years later, like, I wonder if homie had sleep apnea or something. But you got to communicate. You got to communicate your deficiencies.
Yeah.
But after I saw that, I came back. So I was like, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to take it over. And that's when it all changed. Literally from that point on, I shifted from being the server administrator, the system administrator, to being the cybersecurity guy. And I was able to help lead the company to passing the PCI assessment. And that became my vein for cybersecurity.
Wow. So again, another opportunity that you got by pretty much creating an opportunity for yourself. Even though it didn't happen right then and there, it came like a little bit after that, right?
Yeah.
So you end up doing that, the PCI assessment for the company.
Yep.
So how did you end up getting your first role from there? Did they then like slide you into the PCI role? Like what happened from there?
Yeah, so what happened was after I helped them get through that assessment, they looked back and they were like, man, he's actually really good at this.
Yeah.
So I got another phone call during the day. Came in, hey, Boyd, this is what we're going to do for you. We thought about it. We created a new position for you, security analyst. We're going to move you to days, and we're going to increase your salary to $76,000 a year. I was like, this is actually really good. I get to work that day shift. I get to actually see people. Because what I didn't tell y'all is this company built this gigantic 40,000 square foot building in Plano. I was the only person that worked in that building at night.
Oh, wow.
So like I had the big knock dashboard that had the up-down status of all the servers. But like the guys I work with, they were good. So like the stuff was solid.
Right.
So I could like either watch videos on YouTube, I could play Xbox, or I could invest in myself and study. So that's what I did. I took the time to invest in myself and study, and it worked out for me. So they created that position because there was actually no security people at the company at all.
Oh, wow. So you got 76,000 for this first position. So if somebody wanted to get into like a PCI role today, like what should they do?
So
what type of skills should they focus on?
So the skills to help them get into PCI, because most people miss this.
Yeah.
They automatically think if I'm going to go into cybersecurity, I need to have some kind of technical background, some coding or some hacking. Like those things are cool, but they're not required.
Right.
What's important is attention to detail, to be able to communicate orally and written. And then the ability to understand audit frameworks, like reviewing evidence and those type of things. And people with accounting backgrounds or traditional office-based backgrounds actually make pretty good transitions into the PCI space because it's not very technical. So ultimately, it comes down to having those core skills and then getting a high-level understanding of the standard. Because the PCI space is very unique and the fact that if somebody wanted to become certified, like I want to be what they would call an ISA, which is an internal security assessor, a person like you or me can't just go buy the training and the certification become certified. They had to be hired by a company, and then the company has to send and sponsor them to do it, which means you're going to get the training if you get the job.
Got you. So that's kind of like government clearances, kind of like you can't just go out and buy a clearance. You got to get hired by a company first, then they got to sponsor you for it. So it's not like, because that's what, so when people try to become like PCI professionals, they ask you like, hey, what certification should I get to become a PCI specialist?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's making sense. So for people who have like those transferable skills, like what can they do to show employers that, hey, you know, I have these transferable skills. I think I would be a good fit in this role. Like what can they do? Or is there any type of trainings they can do, or what can they do to their resume to like have it speak to these PCI roles?
Yeah, so this is something I help with all the time. So first of all, if somebody gets a high level understanding of what auditing actually is, which is the verification that something is or is not in place, I would have them go back to the positions that they worked at and reimagine those positions. And what I mean by reimagine is like not lie on your resume, but think about where you use these key things, where like somebody submitted a document or something to you, you reviewed it and you kicked it back because it didn't have all the information in it. That's remediation. You audited it. And I say that because one of the things I forgot to mention at the top of this, when I made the transition from accounting to tech, I didn't list any of the accounting stuff on my resume when I made the transition. I only listed the tech support stuff that I did. Even though I was not paid as a tech guy, I still did the work. Therefore, I could speak to it. Right. So it's a lot easier for somebody to transition based on something that they can speak to versus something that they made up. This is why I don't recommend nobody lie on your resume. Right. Everything that's on your resume is fair game for conversation. If you can't speak to it, like stuff that's on your resume, like clearly you're not gonna be able to do your job.
Right. Yeah, I don't recommend people lie on their resume either. That's the fastest way to get set up, right? So somebody else was saying how somebody had tried to completely redo their resume and add things they never did, and they got questioned about it in the interview, and it just didn't turn out well. So I've seen online how, you know, you said as a PCI analyst, you were able to like fly around the world, and they sent you all around the world to do different audits. Like, how was that? And like, how could somebody get into a role like that where you're traveling all around the world doing different audits?
Yeah, so there was a couple phases to that. So the travel first started at that small software company where I first got the PCI job. We had one office down here in Dallas, and the other office was in Yarmouth, Maine. Okay. And because the PCI assessment, it covers people, processes, and technologies in physical locations. So you have to do an audit on the physical locations. So I went to Maine a couple times a year. So after being in that position for about 2.5 years, I made the transition and became the senior security architect for American Airlines. Because I was the architect for American Airlines has 297 airports, multiple ticket offices around the world. I had to travel before the assessment to prepare the company, and then during the assessment with the auditors that came in to perform the assessment. So this is how I was able to go to places like Rome, Italy, Sydney, Australia, Buenos Aires, Argentina. I went to a whole bunch of places for the security assessments, and that was working as the ISA to help the company prepare. So the way I look at it is, I was like Johnny Cochran for American Airlines. Like, I'm gonna speak on behalf of these people, because oftentimes they didn't, when I say they, the internal employees at American Airlines, they knew their job, but they didn't understand all of the PCI impacting pieces. So I was there like, well, no, that's not exactly how that happens. This is what that means to get us out of trouble. Because I observed that the next year, I had my manager rent out the training room at American Airlines that they used to train all the new flight attendants. And for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, we flew people in from around the world, and I did these 8-hour sessions to train people on their PCI responsibilities for their specific role to just kill all that nonsense that happened previously.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what type of money were you making when you were with American Airlines doing their PCI auditing for them?
And so at American Airlines, I was making $150,000, and it was cool because you had the money, great health benefits.
Yeah.
We also had flight benefits.
Oh, okay.
So like on Saturdays, I would wake up and I would just see what flights were open, and I might just go to like the Honduras, just like, boom, go get on the plane. And those flight benefits extended to my family. It was really cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's dope then. So you were making 150. Did they paid you like per diem and stuff while you were traveling as well?
No, they didn't pay per diem. They gave me a company card, which is much better.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. So how'd you go from working for American Airlines to starting your own consulting company? Like what made you want to make that shift to not working for somebody else to creating your own company?
You know, it's funny, it wasn't a shift.
It wasn't a shift.
No, I was always working for myself. So I live by this concept that everybody should manage their career like a business. You are a service provider. Your skill sets create the income, and your employer is just a client. And the thought process has always been, how many businesses do you know that thrive with one client?
Right.
None. So like when people get laid off and they lose their job, like, what am I going to do? So my question always be like, why'd you have one job? Like you need to own your skill set and manage it that way. And as I'm traveling around the world at American Airlines, I'm flying people in, I am building my network. I'm an internal consultant. I never saw myself as an employee. As a matter of fact, I had other consulting gigs where I was doing PCI assessments for different companies while I was the architect in American Airlines. I had both of those things working. But I happened to create a relationship with one of the auditing companies that was working, doing some other audits. And I was in Barcelona for the PCI community meeting that happens every year. And one of the guys came up to me. He was like, hey, man, you're Boyd Clewis. I was like, yeah, who are you? He's like, hey, man, my name's Rob. And I've heard that you've been doing some pretty good stuff in the PCI space. And I'm interested if you want to come to the dark side. I'm like, to that dark side? What he was talking about was he was asking if I wanted to make the transition from ISA to QSA, Qualified Security Assessor. That's the third-party auditor that comes in and performs the assessment.
Okay.
And I was like, from everything I heard about a QSA, they traveled a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I got 4 kids, I got a wife at home, I can't do that.
Yeah.
He's like, we'll make it worth your while. I was like, all right. So we ended up creating a deal that I would not have to leave more than one time a month unless I wanted to. And so I came on as the QSA, and they started me off with a base salary of $180,000 plus bonuses. And so I averaged around $215,000 a year. Now, while doing that, I started consulting. Man, I'm still in NDA. I can't tell y'all the names of these companies.
Yeah, we don't gotta drop any names.
I'm in India doing security assessments, Jamaica. Like I am all over the world, but I am building my book of business. And one of the things that I consistently found is those same challenges that required me to book out this conference room at American Airlines because the employees didn't understand what was going on. I saw that with client after client after client. So that led me to create Baxter Clewis Cybersecurity because we focused on consulting to help implement different things to help companies get prepared for the PCI assessments. But then we had the training academy because there's also a shortfall of people that actually understand what PCI is at a high level and then how to excellently execute the standard to help companies meet compliance. Because if they don't do this thing right, it could be catastrophic. Think about companies like Target, Home Depot. They had credit card data breaches and it cost them millions of dollars, and not to mention the reputational damage. So stepping out allowed me to create that new income opportunity. But I was doing my job so well for the consulting company when I quit. Our main client, now keep in mind, I'm billing this client $10 million a year, right? Mm-hmm. The client tells my company, if Boyd leaves, the deal is over. Wow. So when I quit the consulting company, they had to hire Baxter Clewis Cybersecurity, and pay me double what I was originally making to maintain their contracts.
Wow. But I hear about that a lot. It's like the same way in like the government contracting space too. Like whatever you're making as a government contractor, the government is typically paying that contracting company at least double.
Yep.
So like once you step out and you go and do C2C, you can cut out the middleman and get all of your money up front. So if somebody wanted to, like they're in their career and maybe they're trying to reshape how they think about being an employee, right? And start thinking about, hey, I want to take control of my own career and operate as a business. How should they start to like build that book of business, right? How should they be networking? Because as you know, networking is super important.
Man, it's super important.
Yeah.
The first thing is, before you can physically do anything or make any shift change, it starts here in the mind. Like, if you don't accept that you are a service provider, then it's never going to work. Like me, I could not imagine putting my livelihood in the lives of somebody else. Like when I was working at American Airlines, like if Doug Parker would have made, he's a CEO, he would have made a bonehead decision, the company collapses, now over and done with. Like, it takes personal responsibility first, but that's a challenge because most people live in victim mentality. It's like, oh, they didn't do this, or I didn't have this, and therefore I can't get a job, or I can't do this, and I can't even hang around people like that. I just can't. But it starts in the mind. But one of the things that people miss is the wins. Those little things, those wins on a day-to-day. So I recommend everybody. I used to keep this little black book, and I made a YouTube video about this. This little black book. All the big things that I did, the people I connected with, I would write those things down in this book because that gives you fuel for negotiations in the future. Because it's hard to just ask for money or an increase without presenting value. People got to they got to flip that. Money follows value. You present the value that you've added, and then the companies will pay you for that. They don't just pay you for your presence. And so that's what it really comes down to. Business principles translate very well over into a career, but people got to mentally, they got to mentally get it first. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I feel like mindset in general is just something, especially in our community, we just don't have the right mindset, right? So I think just making sure that you do understand that, hey, maybe I'm just thinking about everything all wrong, and letting go of all your current beliefs and then just trying to completely shift your mindset, probably one of the first things that people can do, right? Even when it comes to just making high six-figure salaries, like you're just, if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to be able to do it. If you don't believe you have enough value, or you don't believe you should be able to make like 200,000 plus a year, you're never going to be able to go out there and ask a company and say, hey, I want 220, 250. You're not even going to be able to do it because you don't believe that you should get paid that. Like I recently made a video about that too. I'm like, I only work jobs that pay over 200,000 a year because that's all I'm going to accept. I won't apply to a job if it doesn't pay more than 200, and I'm not taking an offer if it's not paying me 200, right? So, and just a lot of people, they put themselves out of the runnings before they even apply for the job, right? So they look at the job descriptions and they're like, I can't do that, or I got to go get this cert, or I got to get this degree before I can even apply.
Oh, man. And that kills me. I was the architect at American Airlines from like 2016 to end of 2018, something like that. And to this day, I still don't qualify for that job based on the job description. I don't. And I was talking about this recently with my clients. People don't get what they deserve. They get what they believe. And everything that I have, like, I wholeheartedly believe that I should have it. And therefore, I put in the work to get it. It wasn't in vain. And, one of my most popular videos on YouTube is about me and my career transition. And then at the end, I tell people, hey, I quit this $200,000 job to help people just like you. They're like, how do you quit a $200,000 job? It's because my company makes like $20 million a year. Why would I not? Right. But most people get so comfortable with the 200,000 that they can't see past that. They can't see past it. And with the life that I know I wanted for me and my children, I was like, I'm going to completely change my family tree. 200K a year couldn't do it.
Okay. No, I like that. I like that. So how has the consulting side been? I mean, you've been doing it the whole time. So it's like, how do you go out there and get these contracts, like let's say from companies that you didn't have past connections to?
Yeah. So one of the things about me, I
Mhm.
only speak on my experience
Yeah.
and what I do.
Right. Yeah.
Because
What do you do?
anything else is theory.
Yeah. Exactly.
Me, I happen to be good looking, charismatic. I get my money from speaking from stage. You see me at a conference, I'm talking about cybersecurity, adding value, and I'm a pitch man. So I'm always going to leave the door open for people to come and talk to me, let me know what challenges they're having. So when I get off the stage, I go to the back of the room, the people, they line up for me to come talk to them. And this happened, I was actually attending, here's another thing. Y'all, if you're looking to get business deals and contracts, don't just go to tech events because other tech people are going to be there, right?
Hmm.
I got one of the biggest clients I ever had at a conference called Today's General Counsel thing. It was a conference for lawyers.
Oh wow.
So I get up and I'm talking about security and privacy, and this lady comes up, she gives me her card, and she was like, "Hey, I love the way you communicate. Like, I think we would work well together." She gives me her card, and she's like the lead counsel for the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like my thing. I'm not gonna go where everybody else is. I'm gonna think about like my skill set. For example, airline industry. I know it in and out. Transportation, travel, in and out. Medical, healthcare, in and out. Service providers, in and out. I'm gonna be at those conferences, and I'm gonna make sure that when I go there, I'm gonna be like the only person that's talking about tech or cybersecurity because now I have the room.
Yeah.
Like, I get no pleasure in going to a tech conference with a whole bunch of tech people to talk about tech.
Right.
Like, we can hang out, but I'm here to get the bag.
Okay, so you go in and do different speaking engagements, and you talk about your services that you can offer and how you help other companies with their different PCI assessments, basically.
So actually,
Yeah.
no. I go to these conferences and I talk about the challenges that they're having in the industry. And as
Gotcha.
I talk about the challenges, I will give an example of how we helped company overcome that challenge. So it's indirect selling.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I mean that's pretty dope. So a lot of people don't do that. Most people just go to the tech conferences for sure. So so what made you want to get into the training? I know there's a huge gap in different in PCI talent out there. So like when did you start, training people and things like that? And how did you start it? Because I know you were saying before you started out with like helping people like skip the help desk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I didn't realize it, but the basis for the training actually started at American Airlines. As big as the company is, 120,000 employees, PCI team was like 5 people. You had me as the architect, the technical guy. I had a technical coordinator. I had 2 business analysts and a project manager. They didn't have the tech background to understand some of the technical concepts that were going on. So what I would do is I would take time throughout the week to train them and teach them so they could review evidence on my behalf and send things to me to get final approval. Because like too many people have the skills and ability to do a lot of things, so therefore they try to do a lot of things. I believe in amplifying my output. So if I teach you how to do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I can be more productive because, I had other consulting gigs.
Right.
So I had to teach them the biz so I could continue doing my thing. And at the height of the pandemic, I was just getting back from India. Like literally, I'm on a plane from Kochi, India during the security assessment when they announced this whole COVID thing. And so they're like handing us masks on the plane. And I'm like, what is going on here? So like Boyd Clewis was actually started in December of 2019. January 2020, the world changed.
Yeah.
And I had to pivot. So I thought about what could I do at home to serve and add value. And that's where the Training Academy actually came. So the initial version was called Security Consulting Online. I was teaching people how to become security consultants because that's what I did.
Right.
But it was too high level. people would not believe that they could get a job making $200,000 a year.
Yep.
So I had to bring it down to the internal security assessor level, where I could show people how to get a job making 100,000, 120. It was more digestible.
Right.
And so that's where it all started.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get that 100%. Like I said earlier, like if people don't believe that they can do it, like, I mean, it's too far out of reach.
Yep.
Right. I feel like nowadays I have to spend so much time trying to convince people that they can make that type of money so they can believe it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother topic. Topic.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how you started the training, and with people now that you're training, like what's one of the biggest things one of the biggest issues that you see with people who want to become PCI assessment professionals? Like, what are things that they struggle with that maybe they should think more about to try to get this job?
Mindset. They overthink things.
Yeah.
Like, literally. They will literally find any breadcrumb that will give them that acknowledgement that they cannot do it.
Right.
And I struggle with that so hard. Like, I have crazy empathy, but I have extremely low sympathy. And I say that because, like, I grew up poor. I was a father in high school. My junior year, I had a kid. Found out when I was 20 years old, this kid was not mine. Grew up with ADHD, bipolar disorder, completely undiagnosed. Failed out of just about every class task you could think about. Didn't finish college, but I was able to accomplish these things. So it's hard when people come to me with college degrees and certifications, and the thing that's holding them back is between their two ears. It's literally just like a mental thing. It's a mental thing. So we spend more time on the mindset than we actually do the tech training stuff, because, like, that's just a principle to be resourceful. If I don't understand this system or something, go to the vendor's website, get the admin guide, read it, create an audit plan before I start the assessment. That's easy. But to get you to believe that you can perform that job, that's the tough part. And just to take it biblical, the toughest assignment that God had was changing the minds of slaves. Kids coming to the children of Israel coming into the wilderness, what should have been like a 4-week journey was 40 years because of their minds. So if it was difficult for him, I knew I was up for a challenge. And that's why I spend so much time on mindset work, because this thing that I developed, the authority mindset, is what helped push me through. Because if I didn't have that, I have every excuse in the world to not be successful. But I just refuse to let those things define me.
Definitely. So what is the authority of mindset?
The authority mindset is understanding that I am a service provider and I will be paid based on generating value. And value does not come from certifications. Value doesn't come from other people's opinions. It comes from problem solving. And I have the ability to solve big problems, which equates to a big paycheck.
Got you. No, okay. I get exactly what you're saying. So could you tell me a little bit about, like, what is the day in the life of a PCI assessment analysis person?
Yeah, so it's funny because sometimes it can be really slow.
Yeah.
So it's going to depend on whether you are working in a PCI assessment or you just came out of one. That's why I look at it. There's two phases.
Let's say somebody that's currently in a PCI assessment, what's the typical day in the life? Just so people get an idea, like, what they would be expecting once they got this job.
Yep, so the day in the life during the assessment is, number one, I always believe in checking your schedule calendar the day before, right? Because you're going to have meetings set up for the QSA, the external auditor, to interview people at your company. So let's say that they're going to be meeting with application developers. So I need to know ahead of time. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I have, like, the senior application developer, the knowledgeable one. I'm going to have a pre-meeting with them to go over roles, responsibilities, documentation, any potential issues, so I can address them ahead of time, right? So we're preparing for that QSA audit, and I'm going to be asking them to deliver evidence to me like, hey, you said that y'all made 10 code changes this year, right? All right, send me 5 of those change tickets. I need to see where y'all did the code reviews and everything. So like, I'm not doing any technical work. I'm gathering the evidence and I'm reviewing those things ahead of time. So if there is a problem, I'm aware of it and we can start working on a plan before the audit starts. And that's just something that happens. And then once the external auditor gets there, I'm going to sit in on that meeting and I'm just going to take notes about any potential issues or things like that. And that's what it comes down to. And if a finding happens, meaning the company, we're supposed to be doing something and it's a gap, a finding of non-compliance, I'm going to be working with that application development team to come up with a remediation and timeline for them to get it completed. So ultimately it comes down to communicating, being organized, understanding the standards yourself so that you know if something is going to be a problem, and then you just repeat that cycle. Because of the whole security principle, separation of duties, people that work as ISAs won't have the ability to modify systems. That's why the technical component is not that important. Because if, let's say that we're looking at a Linux system and the account needs to be locked out after 5 invalid attempts, I have to tell the Linux administrator to set that setting and then show me and send me a screenshot for evidence. I can't go in and make that change myself because then I'd be auditing my own work.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So that's a pretty good description of like the day in the life of an ISA professional. So throughout your career, right, from starting out in help desk to making your way to being an ISA and a QSA, what type of challenges have you faced in your career and how did you overcome them?
A lot of the challenges that I faced are no different than my clients.
Yeah.
It was mental. It was imposter syndrome. So being in boardrooms with executives for these multi-billion-dollar companies, like I struggled with feeling like I even deserved to be in that place. And then, advising people at, high exec levels on what they should do to maintain compliance or to address gaps. I mentally struggled with those things. And then one of the things I also struggled with was conflict management. So people don't understand these security audits can be very confrontational between the auditor and the internal team when y'all have disagreements on what is compliant or not. I mean, like I didn't see shouting matches, people getting cussed out. Like I had to find that emotional intelligence to actually make that transition. That was tough. The technology stuff was simple because you know ahead of time what you're going to be looking at, so you can prepare an audit plan. But it was just like the also the communication, When I was working in tech support, when things break, people know, so you need to respond quickly. As an ISA or a PCI professional, you don't want to respond quickly. So like what I tell my clients is be slow to respond, quick to analyze. So we want to make sure that we are sending the right response, because the last thing you want on paper is you saying that something is compliant, but then you take another look at it and it's not. You can't reverse a decision like that. People will hate you. People will hate you. And my natural inclination is to be like the high achiever. Get this done fast, get this done fast, get this done fast. But I learned, get it done slow.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty dope. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I feel like you don't talk about this much, right? So the stuff that you do with your church. I want to talk about that. What made you want to get into, working with your church and giving them, technical support there? Like, what do you do with them for the people who don't know?
Yeah, so like what was crazy is, so first of all, for people that don't know, I am a minister of the gospel and I am the director of technology at Trinity Harvest Church in Hurst, Texas. And man, I owe them everything. When I was the pseudo tech guy at Rico, after I got laid off, when I was making that transition, because I was actually laid off for 6 months. No. That was 4 months before I actually got that first tech job. And that's when I found that church because my sister went there. So I immediately volunteered, got on the camera equipment, all this stuff. So like a bunch of the tech stuff that I learned in the beginning was all from church. And the cool thing about it, and I'll be trying to tell y'all, like the tech support, setting up the wireless stuff, all experience and things I was able to use on my resume, even though I was not compensated for it. One of the biggest things the biggest mistake is they do all kinds of good work. They're the freaking family tech support person, and they don't think to put any of that on their resume. They don't have any skills. Bruh, you set up the Wi-Fi network at your own house.
Right.
Can you not be the business owner for your own house to set that up? Of course you can. You can speak to it. But yeah, so that was something that really helped me, and I've been serving ever since. And so now with all the cameras and technologies, I've installed, enterprise Wi-Fi, firewalls, all that good stuff, because we've changed location, got a bigger location since we first started. But yeah, I actively manage the network there.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. You're actually like the second guest that I've had that worked at a church. Well, the first guy, he did get paid at the church, but they were paying him $14 an hour. And he did all their tech stuff. So I think like for people who are trying to get experience, I think they should look into either like volunteer opportunities or opportunities in places where other people are completely overlooking, like churches and schools or small businesses that might need help, where you can come in and provide whatever type of experience you do have. And it helps you learn how to like figure out and how to solve problems, right? Because you don't have much experience and you're the only tech person.
The biggest mistake that people can make is not taking advantage of volunteer opportunities. So I made this YouTube video about showing your time. Tell them like how I volunteer at the church. You could do the Boys and Girls Club or whatnot. And people they want to be paid instantly. It's like, man, you need to get the ugly out. You need to get that experience. Because the biggest thing that I've learned as a consultant is for every industry that had a problem, I went to another company in the same industry, they had the same problem. So if you are seeing problems that you learn how to solve, then you're going to be able to speak to those type of problems at different companies because like they're all dealing with the same stuff. So experience is experience, regardless whether you're paid for it or not.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then for the people who want to be paid fast, go to help desk. I mean, they're always hiring, right? There's not the most, but I know on the GovTech side, they're paying between $60 to $75K just for help desk.
Wow, that's actually really good.
Exactly. So people are like, you're telling people to get a help desk job? Yeah, I mean, it pays very well in GovTech, and they sponsor your clearance. So
oh wow,
it's not that bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I think I want to see if I want to talk about one more thing before we. Another thing I want to talk about before we get like into the end of the show. I wanted to talk about like people who want to get into tech. I feel like a lot of people aren't really ready to do the work. Like they're not mentally prepared to do the work. And what are you seeing when it comes to that?
I'm seeing the same thing. Unfortunately, what I've seen is a lot of people are interested in getting into tech because of the money, not necessarily because of a passion. And when you are doing something to get a benefit out of it, then it's not going to be something that's going to be last long. But if you do something you're passionate about, then you will definitely see some success in it. Like me, I was like passionate about helping people, especially in the credit card data security space. You know, I didn't make a lot of money, but I've been a victim of credit card fraud, and especially on a debit card. Debit cards are like the hardest thing to get your money back on.
Right.
And so waiting for the bank to make a decision of whether or not they're going to give me my money back when I don't have money in my account to pay my bills, like I empathize with that. And I am on the other end trying to make sure that that doesn't happen to other people. So I am very passionate about that. When it comes to helping people get into tech with high-paying jobs in cybersecurity, I was broke. I didn't have a college. Now, I don't have a college degree. I don't have like the education, not the typical smart guy. So I'm very passionate about that. The challenge is anybody that is not passionate enough to put in the work and push past those obstacles is not going to be successful. Because when you make a plan, most people just say, this is what I want to accomplish. But the biggest thing that I've seen people miss is with everything that they want to accomplish, on the top of their mind, they should already be thinking of what obstacles could get in the way. They need to write down those obstacles and then a plan for how they're going to address them. Because what they do is they say, here's the goal, and then life happens, and then it just falls off, and then it becomes somebody else's problem. So that's the biggest challenge I've seen. It's just people not getting into tech for the right reason and then not taking personal accountability.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I got into tech for the money, but I have a very strong work ethic, right? So like, to me, it was like, hey, making this money, having the life I want to live, being able to change my life and my family's life is a big enough why for me to keep going. And I always know, I just think that a lot of people nowadays just don't understand that challenges are a part of life.
Yes.
Right? Like, people don't realize, like, I got kicked out of NSB, which is National Society of Black Engineers, first night going to the conference, right? Like, I had to go into VCU undeclared, so because my GPA was so low, right? So you have to know you're always going to face challenges and you're going to have to overcome them. Like, so people see where we are and they think we didn't face any challenges to get there, right? Like, they don't realize, like, the long nights of studying, not being able to figure something out, and you just, you know, your wheels are spinning, but you have to be able to have that willpower to keep going, right? And I think no matter what your why is, like, if you don't have that willpower to overcome the challenges, tech's not going to be for you.
Nope, not at all.
There's always challenges every day. All right, so before we wrap up this show, I have one question that I ask all of my guests. What's one piece of advice that you can give people to get to where you are today?
The biggest advice that I could give them is make your vision so vivid. Write it down, put it on your wall, and anybody that speaks against it or doubts it, ignore them. Ignore them. The things that I do in my life now, people are like, oh man, that is amazing, that is cool. I'm like, okay. It's because I expected this because I believed it. And the people that didn't, they are either no longer in my life or they're like, dang man, you was right the whole time.
Yep.
You gotta have the right support system. So get those people from around you, and you have to be relentless in your pursuit of that vision.
I agree 100%. Now, that's a great way to wrap up this episode. So thank you so much for coming on, Boyd. Where can people find you at, whether they want to, you know, follow you on YouTube or hire your company for PCI consulting, or if they want to join your training, where can they find you at?
Hey, they can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, at Boyd Clewis. Me in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Maybe you might be driving, you'll see a billboard of me. Don't text while driving, but you'll see the number to text.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you. I feel like this is a great episode. So that wraps up another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one.